Good morning or afternoon. While people are getting notified about this and tuning in, and while I wait for my guest today, I just want to tell you a little bit about this project, Women Who Vagabond. So this is episode 3 or 4 of Women Who Vagabond, and it's something that I'm hoping to continue through all of next year, 2021, inviting different women who solo travel to come and share about their experiences and their way of traveling and being in the world. The idea came out of my book, Vagabondess, A Guide to Solo Female Travel, and after spending really a year on my project and getting my story out there, I have wanted to shift my attention to highlighting other voices and other stories. It's something that often happens when I share my story as a solo female traveler. People say, well, maybe that worked for you, but X, Y, or Z, that wouldn't apply to me. So I just want to bring on as many different perspectives as I can and highlight all of the different kinds of women who are traveling solo like I did or in different ways. There's so many really inspiring stories out there. So that is the intention with Women Who Vagabond. The idea is to have a guest on every week and eventually shift into a real podcast format. But to start out, we're doing the Instagram Lives. You can also find the recorded videos afterwards on my YouTube channel and my Medium page. And should be hearing from Hannah any second now. Well, I'll tell you about Hannah while I'm waiting. When I first had the idea for this program, I reached out to people in my network and asked if they knew of any badass solo female travelers that I should definitely interview, and someone told me to check out Hannah's Happiness Project. And I'm a little bit obsessed with her philosophy on happiness and compassion and kindness and her concept of happiness activism. So I'm really excited to have her on today, and we're just gonna wait for her. There she is. Perfect timing. I must have called you in. All right, I'm gonna bring Hannah in now.
Hello.
Hello, welcome.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yes, very well, thank you. Very, very well. You definitely did call me in. I've never done one of these, so I was like, oh, how does this work? And then just as I saw it, you went, I must have pulled her in. So you definitely did.
It works. That's
It was,
how it works. You just psychically call people and they show up in your
I'm
live
definitely
video.
I'm living in Glastonbury, which is like the land of the witches and the psychics, and so that vibe's definitely here for sure.
Oh, fun. How long have you been there?
How long? I've been here about 2 months now, actually. So I was cycling through and got called to stay and do some work here. So now I am. So I'm staying here for a bit through this sort of weird coronavirus time and making the most of it, which is going great. I'm really having a great time. And how are you?
I'm good. I'm here sort of camped out in Costa Rica. It's the longest I've stayed in a place in, gosh, I guess 6 years
Yeah.
without going anywhere else. And it's been a great thing for all of my projects, being like a little bit more grounded and focused. So 2020 has been a funny year. It's been a hard year, but I can't really think of a better place to be locked down than Costa Rica. So I have no complaints.
Yeah, wicked. Yeah, I feel the same. I've had two very, very different but great lockdowns. One was in Rishikesh in India. That was like my first lockdown, which was great. And then the second one here in Glastonbury, which is also great. So yeah, I've been very fortunate in that respect. Although I feel like you're doing better on the weather front in Costa Rica, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely winning on the weather. So have you been cycling during, like, since quarantine and lockdown started?
So I did for a little bit. It was in the middle. So I basically, when I was cycling through India on the way back to the UK from Vietnam, when I could sort of see the situation unfolding. It was sort of coming through a little bit in the news. People were talking about it. And I found myself anticipating what was going to happen. So I fast forwarded and got myself to Rishikesh, so to speak. And it was a really good tactical move because then I was in a place that could really cater for the tourists, and also like the fear. There was like a massive growing fear in India of tourists that they were bringing the virus and things like that. So it was good to be in a place that was already used to and dependent on tourists, especially as I've been in India for so long. Obviously, I hadn't brought it from anywhere. So yeah, and then that was great. So I didn't cycle for quite a while then, and then I came back to England in the sort of interim periods. It was still post lockdown, but not quite entirely normal. And then I started cycling, and then we started going into approaching lockdown again. And then that was when I stopped in Glastonbury. So I haven't actually cycled through lockdown, but just sort of around and about.
And I guess backtracking, can you explain a little bit more about your mode of travel and how you've been traveling these past years?
Yeah, so well, I've been traveling for years on and off with backpacking, and then I kind of had this idea about cycling. To be honest, I didn't know anything about bikes. I didn't know anything about cycling. I wasn't a cyclist. It was more the concept was promoting sustainable, economical, and ecological travel, whilst also having an opportunity to talk about the things that I value and respect. So I sort of evolved into this activist for everything, as standing against animal rights, standing for environmentalism, for feminism, and just against every inequality as a social activist. And I loved making people happy, and I kind of looked at all the problems that we had, and for all of the other issues, and started to look at why do these things happen. And I think I came to the conclusion that was because someone somewhere or a group of people were making a selfish decision because they weren't quite content with what they had. They wanted to fulfill some kind of desire, whether that was momentary pleasure with food or even something like rape, or on a bigger scale, whether that's getting more money, power, status, it's to fulfill your ego, and get something that you don't have because you're not quite content. So I started to look at like, okay, this is happening and why. What about if I could inspire people to be at their best version of themselves, at their happiest? And then we naturally make kinder, more compassionate and less selfish decisions. So instead of going around the world telling people what they should or shouldn't do, I thought I'll just inspire this happiness movement and encourage people to respect themselves, each other, all beings on the planet. And if I do something ridiculous like cycle across the world, then people will have to listen to what I have to say. So it just kind of all a few different ideas came together, and then I became a cyclist. And I think a lot of people tell me, oh, I'd love to do this, but I'm not that, or I'd love to do that, but I'm not this. And it's like, well, what made me a cyclist? Getting on a bike. What makes you an artist? Picking up a pen. You can decide these things. So not to let fear stop you. And I think the way to pioneer positive social change is to inspire it, not dictate it. So here we are.
Oh, that's super inspiring what you say about becoming a cyclist, because honestly, that's one thing I'm not, I don't see myself as a cyclist. I know how to ride a bike, that's about it. And I wouldn't know what to do if anything wasn't working with it. And I think that stopped me from ever considering cycling as a mode of transport. I like to walk. Like I have a lot of confidence in my legs as a mode of transport, but it's a hell of a lot slower than cycling. You can't cover much ground.
For sure.
And that resonates so much. There's so many things that I wasn't until I started doing them. Like I
Yeah.
wasn't a singer until I started singing, and I wasn't an artist until I started making art. And it comes first, right? Like doing it comes first, and then you get to sort of assume that identity. and live it.
100%. And like my favorite moments are when everything goes wrong, because that's when I get to learn how to fix it. You know, like that's the thing. If I knew how to do everything, it actually kind of wouldn't be as fun. So I love it when I have a pedal snap off. I didn't even know that you could have a pedal snap off. But apparently that's the thing, you know. Or I got run over when I was in India. Again, like not the funnest thing to experience, getting run over, but it happened, and I have an amazing story because of it. So fundamentally, the most challenging moments in our lives are the things that are going to evolve us and inspire us and teach us about our own resilience and ability to overcome adversity. So I thrive living off those moments. And yeah, cycling, I didn't even know how to change a tire or use gears or anything. So I really recommend it as the mode of transport. Like you said, it doesn't like, I find walking, I love walking, but cycling, it's like you move slowly enough to be fully part of your present moment, but you move at good enough speed to actually cover good ground as well. So best of both.
Yeah. The other thing you said that really resonated is about, well, what I took from what you said about sort of your happiness activism is it's a lot to do with showing people possibilities through your own choices and your own lifestyle rather than telling people with imperatives like you should do this or you should change your life in this way.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's sort of how I've lived for a long time as a traveler and as a writer. It's not like, oh, here's what you need to do with your life, or here's the changes you need to make, but just this is how I'm living, and just by living that way, hopefully someone else will open up to new possibilities.
Oh, absolutely. And I think like that's the thing, and that's a really key part of the work that I do and the outreach that I do. It's about empowering others and uplifting their potential, showing people that they should have confidence in themselves, that they're able to find that confidence in themselves, and giving them the tools and the resourcefulness to be able to tackle that and source that. Because it's such a shame, it is so sad that fear dictates so many people's realities. And just shifting your perspective, shifting your approach to your life, from a really small thing like just making a decision on a daily basis to maybe drink less tea or less coffee, to deciding to cycle across the world. It literally does come down to that choice and that angle that you're choosing to take. And you can either look at the giant mountain or task ahead of you, or you can just take one step at a time. So it's just really about setting some goal and having a given direction, but not being too worried about the details, sort of filling in the gaps as you go. Yeah.
So then, yeah, speaking to that of taking things one step at a time, you're zero waste and vegan, right?
Yes.
So those are two things that people definitely see as mountains.
Yes.
How did you start? Like, what were your first steps in that direction?
Well, the vegan thing, to be honest, was quite a switch, because for me, I turned vegan for animal rights. So it wasn't like, although environmental factors were a really big, bonus as well, and definitely something that played on my mind in the background. The reason I went vegan is because I couldn't justify exploiting another being completely unnecessarily, and I realized it was just for pleasure. There was no need for it in my life. There was no need for me to have a steak. There was no need for me to have milk. There was no need for me to have honey. It was just because I wanted it. There were other alternatives, that meant I didn't have to. So for me, that was quite just a shift. But in terms of zero waste was definitely more gradual for me. And to be honest with you, right now at the moment, living where I am, because I'm living in community, I'm actually more minimal waste but when I'm living independently, I'm completely zero waste. And that's been almost a hard adjustment for me, actually, because I work very well with the extremes. I work very well with I'm either something or I'm not. So actually the in between is the challenge for me. So that's been an interesting experience. But with zero waste, I definitely I started to realize more and more things that I could do, and again, empowering my next action. So at first it's like cutting out the obvious plastic switches or carrying your own water bottle. that you refill, or filtering your own water rather than buying new bottles, you know, those little changes then start to progress into making your own toiletries, or you know, like buying the waste-free option. It depends where you are as well in the world, and what you have the capacity to be able to give financially or time-wise. It's a mixture. So I have a couple of blog posts on living zero waste though, which are super useful if someone's getting started. And I think just remember to celebrate your successes and ask yourself two questions. Ask yourself, is it a want or is it a need? Desire versus necessity. And if you're walking down the street and you see a place that sells smoothies, you're like, oh, I really want this smoothie. You know, okay, so maybe you're carrying your own straw. That's great. Perfect. So now you're putting your own straw in the smoothie, but you still got the plastic cup. So maybe next time you can carry your own cup. But maybe in that moment you ask yourself, do I want the smoothie or do I need the smoothie? Does my want for this smoothie justify the act of using a plastic cup that I know is going to cause damage? You know, so ask yourself and be honest with yourself, and you'll get to different stages along your own journey where you'll decide this is okay for me right now, or actually I've now learned how to navigate around it and I should be aware of this more, therefore I'm not going to allow this. And it's the same as everything in our life, you know, the more you do, the more you realize you can do. So yeah.
I like that approach a lot as well, because it leaves space for each person to make their own decisions and figure out where they are and where that balance is between wants and desires and needs and necessities. Because I think a lot of people get defensive when they're confronted with something like zero waste lifestyle or vegan lifestyle. They sort of close in and try and defend the choices that they make, and it's not about defending your choices, but just like having that conversation with yourself and being okay with yourself and the choices that you're making.
Totally, I totally agree. And that's the thing, just because I'm vegan and just because I live like very environmentally aware doesn't make me better than you or someone else, because there's things that you do in your life that I don't do, and that doesn't make you better than me. But as mature and educated or aspiring to be a better version of ourselves, you know, it's up to us to have these conversations so that we can become better and we can continually evolve and we can become more conscious. So as long as you're proactively asking yourself, how can I be better? And you're acting on those questions that you're asking, then you're always going to be growing. But we are human, and your journey is completely different to mine, which has brought you to this point. And the same for me, you know, like every day I learn a new way to be better than I was yesterday. So I can either acknowledge that, or I can either act on it, or I can ignore it. Now, acknowledgement is also a form of success, like recognizing that you are or you're not doing something. Sometimes you have to sit with something and take before you take it forward. So the process is different for everyone. There's no right or wrong, but just to remember to celebrate your successes, because that's how you're going to continue to evolve rather than being harsh on yourself or your mistakes. Like, we are human. So. And ask for help as well. Help is good.
And I want to ask you about your experience as a solo female traveler. And so a common thread I've noticed with a lot of women I know who travel solo is the pushback they get. And the sort of the comments from friends or family or strangers of, oh, well, you should be careful, or is that safe, or aren't you scared? And I'm curious, especially cycling solo, what kind of feedback or responses you've gotten.
I mean, I get aren't you scared all the time, but I get aren't you scared a lot from everyone, not just the people that are from home, but actually the people on my journeys. And my response to them, especially in rural areas, is scared of what? Of you? And they go, no. I say, exactly. You know, that's the thing. Like, and you can also have the situation, like people say to me about camping by yourself or whatever when you're in the middle of nowhere. What are the chances of, like, people say, oh, you can be camping by yourself, a man could want to come and do something to you or rape you. I said, well, what if I'm the psycho? Maybe I'm the psychopath. What are the chances of me being in this random place that no one knows I'm going to be at the exact time, and a psychopath being there ready to attack me at that exact moment? You know, like, this is that's how irrational fear can be, and we build up these scenarios in our heads, and actually it doesn't have to be that complex. So I try and help people work out what is fear and what is risk, and then when you break that down, you can see that actually fear clouds our judgment on making these decisions of whether we should or shouldn't do something. And I find that the more you open yourself to the world, more people are receptive to it. So I would say my friends and family know me so well, and I've been traveling such a long time now that I don't really get the whole "aren't you scared" anymore. But you definitely, as a woman, you definitely face a number of different challenges that you wouldn't as a man. But I, again, feel super empowered when I'm dealing with that, because it just allows me to redefine the concept of what a woman is, especially in places that people think so little of our abilities. You know, one of the most common questions I get asked actually when I'm in remote places is, well, I get, how many kilometers do you cycle a day? I get, where's your husband or your boyfriend? And then after the husband or boyfriend question, I get, what do you do when you get a flat tire? And I'm like, well, would you ask a man that question? No, you wouldn't. I'm like, I just sit at the side of the road and I cry in hope, and I pray that a man can come and save me. And yeah, so I really enjoy actually like smashing those stereotypes, which is good fun. So yeah, I kind of like the challenges like that. If that makes sense.
And it's powerful because like witnessing one person who breaks those stereotypes can actually completely shift somebody's perspective. So you just being you out there is shifting perspectives and overturning stereotypes. So I love that response of, well, who should I be afraid of? Like, should I be afraid of you? I'm going to borrow that one next time someone asks me.
Because most people everywhere are actually good people. They actually, you know, like they're very receptive to you. They're excited that you want to see and learn about their country, and they want to engage with you and embrace you. And the fact is, I probably have a higher chance of getting robbed or mugged or raped in London, where I'm from, than I do on the other side of the world, where people are so honoured to be able to host you, to share with you, to welcome you in their family. I mean, you know, you have risk everywhere, and it's just about being aware and confident in yourself to minimise those risks, you know, like there are definitely techniques that I like to share with people about being a woman travelling by themselves. I think being aware and looking confident are two like natural givens. Speaking with confidence as well, you know, become intimidating. But my number one tip is, if you're ever in a what you feel is a dangerous situation, the number one piece of advice is become the psychopath. Become the psychopath. If you are the problem, they don't want to deal with you anymore. So if you're ever feeling scared, or if you're ever feeling like you could be seen as vulnerable, just start whacking yourself in the head and screaming and just being as crazy and freaky as you can, and then they don't want to deal with you anymore. You're not attracted to them. So, and also you're making lots of noise to help other people be aware of your situation. So yeah, confidence is important.
Yeah, those are all really key. And going back to what you said about risk versus fear, I think that's such a key distinction, because our fears often don't have very much to do with the realities, the facts of the risks that we face as women. It is like the numbers show that we're at higher risk with partners or with family members or with friends than anyone else. And that doesn't mean there aren't risks traveling alone. It just means that maybe our fear isn't really so proportional to the realities out there.
Absolutely. And well, you can, like you just said, you know, the levels of domestic violence in the UK, where I'm from, you know, speak for themselves. Does that mean that you're never going to get in a relationship? No, you can't live that way. So, you know, it's about having the confidence to go for something, but also having the strength and being able to recognize your own gut reaction, your gut feelings, and going with it, and having the conviction to go through with it. Those two things together will mean you can achieve anything, really. And I think it's such a shame that fear does hold people back, not just in travel, but in all areas of their lives. Like, ask yourself, what's the worst, what's really the worst that can happen? And if we look at that worst case scenario situation, how can we prevent that in if that does arise? And when you're armed with everything you need to, you know, if you think about something, even like if you have a SIM card, if you're scared in a foreign country and you have a SIM card that is on your phone, right? And let's say you feel apprehensive, or you can just drop 5 people a message sharing your live location saying, I'm concerned right now. If you haven't heard from me in 10 minutes, please share my location with someone. You know, little things like that that can really easily alert someone of what you're doing. And that's in more basic, maybe on more basic travel terms than maybe the travel that you or I do in really remote places. But I find like the more you open your heart to the world, the more it opens its heart to you. And I think like, yeah, fear is just a massive block in that. And that's what our society continues to perpetuate to us. And it's such a shame.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I want to ask you, because having chatted with you just for 20 minutes and having been following you for the last couple of months, I love your philosophy and I love your perspective on happiness activism and openness and that connection with the world and with people. And I'm curious, this is something that happens to me as a solo traveler. I'm curious if you ever don't feel open and you don't feel like connecting, and if so, how do you manage that?
Well, at the moment, I practice silence and I fast every Monday. So being like someone that works so actively socially as well, I give a lot of myself to other people. So maybe this isn't just so travel specific, but I think finding your own grounding practices is really, really important, whether that's meditation or going for a solo hike or just whatever resonates with you, yoga, maybe breath work, so many different things. For me, my Monday practice is really important because I give myself so much. When I was cycling, this was something that I couldn't necessarily, well, I say couldn't, I didn't practice on a weekly basis. But I think like writing is really helpful for me, keeping a diary, drawing and painting. Again, all these practices that resonate with me, that allow me to express from within and actually listen to myself. They're the things that keep me focused, because otherwise you run the risk of giving yourself too much. So by maintaining those practices, I don't feel like I ever need to be closed. But by listening to my gut, which I was talking about before, I just follow my heart, to be honest. Like if I want to do something, I do it. If I don't want to do something, I don't do it. And I don't feel like I have to label that as necessarily open or closed. I think it just is being in a full state of presence. And I think like that's what we are not taught to do. I think we're taught to either dwell on things or live in anticipation for getting something else. And traveling by walking or traveling by bicycle are things that allow you to be more present. So for me, it's about presence, and that doesn't. It's not about open or close. It's just about what is. You know.
Yeah, I like that, and I think we have the tendency, just people in general have the tendency to say, oh, that's a better way to live, or that's a better way to interact with the world, so I should be more open. And it's sort of missing the point, because as you said, it's the goal is to be present, and if in the present I'm not feeling like chatting with a stranger, then that's my present moment reality, and that's okay. And it's not like I'm not living up to some ideal of how an evolved human being should be because I don't want to talk right now.
Yeah, and this is different for every single person. Like for me, like for me as an individual, it's very rare that I won't want to talk to someone, because I'm just that kind of person. And I see every person, every experience, every place is another opportunity to engage and learn and evolve. So I I work best at 100 miles an hour. But some people really don't work best like that. And it's about recognizing yourself as an independent, and you're only going to find out more about yourself with the more you engage with. And perhaps that's engaging from your inside out. For others, it will be engaging from the outside in. But both practices are really important, and every step of the ladder in between. So as long as you're, you know, constantly shifting around, even if that's a centimeter to the right or a centimeter to the left, you're still learning a bit more. And that's the importance. It's about like continually growing rather than remaining entirely static. But a step for me, or a step for you, or a step for Neil Armstrong, or whoever you want, is completely different, and it doesn't have to be the same, you know. So keep shuffling, keep shifting, and jazz it up in whichever way you feel to in that moment, and that's okay, I think.
Keep dancing.
Yeah,
Dancing.
who doesn't like dancing? Even if it's badly, it doesn't matter.
We're just about out of time. And I guess in closing, I want to ask if you have any like top advice that you would share with women who are wanting to travel solo.
I would say top advice for women that want to travel solo. Well, firstly, just do what you feel, like just go with it. Ask for help and ask for advice if you feel like you need any advice. And just, yeah, if you feel like, do foundation research, but don't overthink things. You know, if you're going to throw yourself into going into a war-torn country, maybe like you were thinking about solo travel in like Syria, or if you want to go to a country where, you know, for example, I traveled in Bangladesh by myself, which is a Muslim country, and you get a lot of people that, you know, are receiving you differently because you're a solo woman. You know, maybe do a little bit of research so you have some kind of cultural understanding, but beyond the cultural understandings, just go and find out. Like, people are waiting to embrace you, and the more remote the culture, the more foreign it is to you, the more excited they're going to be to receive you. So yeah, primary research, but wing it and you'll love it. And if you ever need help, there's so many inspiring women out there that can give you tips on specific places from first-hand experiences now. Just reach out. Like, people like you or people like me, like, we want to encourage this with other women. We want to empower women. So if anyone ever reaches out to me, and I've had so many women do it, I'm so excited to be able to share with them, have a phone call with them, or send them a voice note or whatever. So yeah, just do it, and we're here to support each other as an international community.
Absolutely. I want to second that. I love when women reach out to me asking for tips on solo travel or just wanting some feedback on what they're planning to do. It's one of my favorite things to do, is to support other women to have these experiences. And I see that you feel exactly the same. And there's so many women out there who are ready to support and guide.
Absolutely. And share it as well. Like, absolutely share it. Now we've got these tools to encourage and empower and celebrate ourselves as amazing female beings that are conquering the earth and shattering these expectations. It's so important to talk about it. And we, yeah, just celebrate our own independent power, and we all have it. So yeah, it's a shame that the rest of the world can't see it. And I think you and I and so many others come from such privileged backgrounds and opportunities. There are plenty of women that would love the chance to do what we're doing and will never have that chance. So we have to go to them. We've got to go to them, because how else are we going to learn about each other? We're all doing something right. You know, whether you're from Costa Rica or America or England or India, everyone's doing something right. So we have to meet so that we can all learn and teach and share, and so important. So go out there and do it. You'll love it.
Hannah, thank you so much for joining in this chat today. I loved hearing your perspective and your philosophy, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk again.
Yeah, I hope so. And I want to hear more about your story, so maybe we can do it the other way around next time.
Absolutely.
So lovely to meet with you and speak with you, and thank you so much for having me. Keep doing the amazing work you're doing.
Thank you. Likewise. Have
All
a
right,
great day.
and you. Bye.
Bye.